Madam DSG, what a pleasure and honor to see you once again.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Congratulations for that very important speech delivered at the summit together with Chinese President Xi Jinping. What is your takeaway from this important gathering for women's cause and, of course, for gender equality?
Well, for me, it's a special time for women to come together. It's a world where the geopolitical tensions have caused a lot of damage to multilateralism and the idea that we are better together. And bringing women together to celebrate what was quite momentous in 1995 and to say, well, we did well, we're not there yet, and we still have a way to go. And that recommitment to see leaders, the president, of course, of the People's Republic of China, but President Xi, but I think, you know, the other leaders, the president from Iceland, to hear many around the gatherings that we've had and their need to see women at the center. And to give hope to the next generation, because there's a lot of young women out there and they're important to how we shape our future.
You were in Beijing 30 years ago, in Huairou, at the non-governmental organizations area, and now another visit 30 years later. How would you personally, and also as the DSG of the United Nations, reflect upon these 3 decades, how time flies? But at the same time, the world changes.
Exactly, how time flies. It seemed like yesterday, and when you see the growth of China, I mean, just coming back to the country, and of course I've been many times before, but if I have to think back 30 years, what China is today does give a lot of hope for, I think, for many countries around the world who feel like they've been left behind, that it is possible, it's possible to do things in a big way. It is possible to bring so many hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, access to education, in the workforce, women in the workforce, and therefore you can do so much more. I think that that's important. China's role in multilateralism has been important. More recently, we've seen the whole discourse around new technologies and AI, and their support for it to be in the UN, to be in our global town hall, where we can put, I would say, the guardrails for the opportunities of technology, and of course women at the center of that. And we don't have to think so much about the gaps as we have to think about how do we leapfrog, how do we use technology to close the gaps on education, on joining the workforce, on political participation, and so a lot of hope.
In Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech, he mentioned about several points. For example, about women's rights for economic development, trade, on innovation, on technology, on governance, and so on. How do you see UN can work with China on these courses? Of course, with the SDGs, 5 years to go, there's a lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to be done, and I think China has a role at the global level where we reinforce this with meetings and summits like this with our member states to make sure everyone is coming along. But I think we have an even bigger role to see China play at the country level. The UN is represented in more than 130 countries. That's a big footprint, and to have China's support in South-South cooperation, in reinforcing what our system is able to provide in terms of expertise, reinforcing the data. When we say leave no one behind, you have to know who and where they are. So there are many aspects of the 2030 agenda that we can see the role and the leadership of China in. There are examples, I mean, examples that you share. I think one of the biggest, perhaps, opportunities has been with this huge, what would I say, huge success in what you've done with renewable energy. Energy is critical to bringing people out of poverty, to joining the market space and to seeing economies grow. That 60% increase in investments in renewable energy has by and large been here in China. And I think that that's a huge opportunity for other countries and for, you know, attaining the SDGs much sooner.
You also mentioned at the conference, Madam DSG, about technology, especially algorithms should not be disadvantaging women and girls. How do you see the UN process of bringing everybody together on the latest AI development and the important cause of gender equality can work together? What can be the link between the two?
Well, first of all, when you look at the Pact for the Future, the first chapter there reinstates and reinforces the SDGs. That's what we have to achieve. It is the framework around which we work. So applying the new era of technology and AI to that is critical. And we see this within the Global Digital Compact that was also signed on. It really tells you a compact between states to put governance around technology. More importantly, we had the member states approve what we call the dialogue, the digital dialogues, and the science panel. These two things are going to be really important, ensuring we have the latest evidence and data to work with and to make sure that things like the algorithms are tackled. But at the same time, the dialogue, so that we have digital literacy, so that we're able to see what is happening across countries, learn from them, that you use AI as a tool and that you're not left thinking it's using you. And there is much to be learned from that. Once you've dealt with how you will put the digital public infrastructure up, you will connect people. The next thing is that what's going to happen to societies and humanity? How can we have that discourse? A discussion where we really think it through. What happens to education, how we will be perhaps more accessible for health, what will happen in the job markets, what kind of jobs will young people have tomorrow. These are all things that I think are very, very pertinent for us today.
UN has always been talking about and working on bringing everybody together. On the togetherness, the Chinese president also touched on that, for example, on global governance. Recently, as you know, Madam DSG, the International Global Governance Initiative, was raised by China and suggested to the UN and also the rest of the world. How much do you think can be the next step beyond this phrase and into action?
I think the action is about how we finance development and how we see development connected to peace. And that's the incentive I think that leaders should have, is that we need a more enabling environment. That means a more peaceful environment for everyone to have a life of dignity. We have to look at the financial architecture to see how we can better finance many of our developing countries, how we can strengthen South-South cooperation. And all of this is on the table. These are resolutions we've agreed over the years, more recently the Pact for the Future. But we did come out of conferences like Seville, which agreed on a number of finance issues that would help us to get to the SDGs. We heard today from presidents whose country issued the first women bond. So these are all helpful instruments to allow us try to, first of all, make sure the other half of the world is in the agenda and we succeed with them, but also to see that everyone has an equal chance of a life of dignity.
And today, I remember, if I remember right, Chinese president did mention about contributing to the UN Women.
Very grateful to hear him put that amount of resources at the disposal of UN Women. And UN Women mainstreams what we talk about in terms of gender. So whatever they are receiving is actually affecting each and every one of our agencies, because they're able to take on the issues of women in FAO or in UNESCO, WHO. So this is a UN system benefiting, not just UN Women, and that, I think, is a big message. The second message he gave was the funding of South-South cooperation. I think that that's really important, is that, you know, as you are coming out of your development into a space where sustainable development is your future, you're not leaving people behind. You're also saying, okay, let's go together. And I think that's the partnership that people want to see.
We had several talks, Madam DSG. I've never really had a real opportunity to ask you personally about your story. But today I'm going to jump on that and really take this opportunity. Listening to an earlier podcast you did with your UN colleague, I understand you're coming from a very small village in Nigeria, a rural girl. But look at where you are and what you are trying to do for the women around the world, and also for gender equality, men and women. So many wonder how this miracle happened. You know, a lot of these role model stories can be really inspiring for young women all over the world.
They can be, but I think many things make up a person's story. It's not so much a miracle as it is your upbringing. You know, that parents are able to give you roots and wings to fly. Those roots are in identity, traditions, faith, but the wings to fly are in education, exposure to different forms of knowledge, and to be able to have a career that you understand building blocks. It's a path, it's a journey. And you have to be very focused, work really hard, deliver. I think once you're a person that is synonymous with being able to deliver, however small the delivery, it becomes your hallmark. And people look for people that can perform, that can deliver. And you've just got to be focused about it. For me, I think it's been always putting people at the center. I could not walk through a street and feel comfortable if people were poor. I always see my periphery. I don't see numbers, I see people. And I think that that's how my journey has continued. And knowing that, you know, the sky is the limit. Yeah. I'm the oldest of 5 girls. My father was just very supportive of seeing our success. But as you look around you, you have to see the women that are less fortunate. If you occupy a space, as I do now, bring more women into that space. And in the UN today, 50% of our leaders are women. 50% of those that are representatives at the highest level in our countries are women. So it's about occupy, expand, and sustain it.
A lot of people say you are straightforward.
Yes.
Very straightforward. And always have the can-do spirit, but at the same time see to the actions. I also heard from people that you sometimes would not be that diplomatic in terms of trying to reach the goals for the common goods. So, but there are stereotypes about women, you know? Women should be like this, women should be like that. So how do you balance, you know, your so-called your images in others' eyes vis-a-vis what your big mission and big cause is about in the heart?
I think if diplomacy means that you have to be nice while people are suffering, then I don't want to be a diplomat. I came here to make a difference in people's lives, to leave a position better than I left it. And if that means that sometimes you have to tell us as it is, that's what you do. Mine is not to bring people's voices, it's to amplify the voices of those that expect us to do something better than they've had. So no apologies for that directness. But I believe that, you know, we have responsibilities and accountability, and that makes a big difference when people are looking at you. I'm very conscious of my audience, what has brought me here, who am I speaking to, what am I saying. Often, you know, I've been in the audience, so I know what I think of the person on the podium. I'm listening for something that's credible, I'm listening for something that can give me hope. I'm listening for something that takes me out the door that I can do something with, what action I can take. So that's what I hope when I get on the podium, is that I'm connecting with the audience and I'm connecting with one person that will go out and make other people's lives different.
You know, a lot of people were asking the question, especially women, is it the relationship between women, among women, a nature of a competition or a nature of nurturing?
I see both of it. It's not either or. I mean, first and foremost, we are nurturing. We are the ones that give life, right? And so through that, it's natural. We're multitasking, so we never leave anything behind. We're always doing 10, 11 things at the same time. But we are also focused in wanting to achieve what we need to do. I think in my position, look, I welcome and I embrace being a woman. I like being a mother and a grandmother. But at the same time, I also like the opportunity to lead. And to participate in an economy, in a political space, in a business space. I've been in business as well, and create opportunities for women, for those that don't have, because a more equal environment is better for everyone. It's better for our mental health, it's better for our safety, it is better for prosperity, it's better for everything.
30 years ago, women's rights are human rights, enshrined as a result of the 4th World Conference on Women. 30 years later, how do you reflect upon that slogan as someone who has been consistently working on it?
Well, first, I think let's give tribute to all those women that we have stood on their shoulders to get to where we are today. Women have come together and done this. As you said, they nurture, but they also support women's leadership, and we've come a long way. We have a few good men too. We saw today President Xi give us a lot of commitment towards supporting us. This is not a small country, and I think that we should take that up and we should use it. But I'm very hopeful because young girls have women to look up to. Today we have 2 presidents in Africa, my continent, And so girls can look up at that and say, it's possible for me to occupy that seat. They will see an African that is the Deputy Secretary-General. It's possible for me to do that and more. They will see many chief executives that we didn't have before that we have today across the world, and they will be inspired. That was not so 30 years ago. So I think that we have to, look at the glass that is some full, and then look to see how we will fill the rest by 2030. Madam DSG, has always been a pleasure talking to you once again. It's great to be with you. Great to be with you. Thank you so much.